Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just next to the English Channel. If you speak Anglo-Saxon, you can say haven instead of Hythe. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a haven, a safe haven, where someone can take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's association direct from his books by hearing out loud his books together in the association of like-minded Vaishnavas. And tonight we're very privileged and honored to have another contingent from the Wales Yatra, headed by Gopal Roy Prabhu, who we've known for years and years, and my best friend, Vaisheshika Prabhu, who I don't know, I can't talk to him anymore. He moves so fast, I can't even see him or speak to him. But anyway, he was just spent a couple of days in Wales enlivening the whole yatra, on his way to enlivening the whole world. And he'll be here the 19th, actually. Probably not during the reading, but sometime during the day. He'll have a program at 6:30 in the morning, and he'll have a program at 6:30 at night, and drive all the way here and drive all the way back. I'll be lucky to say hello, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But Nirakula, his better half, listens a lot to the readings, to the daily readings. So, Hare Krishna. Needless to say, we're very close. Hare Krishna. They're family. When my mother passed away, I adopted her. She's my mom. Yeah, surrogate mom. So, okay. So let us settle in and get down to business. Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, which is also, by the way, published by the BBT, although they didn't promote it very well, but it's there, if you can find it, by Srila Sanatana Goswami. It was a very special book. We did this book just after we did the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and Gopi Puranadana Prabhu is the translator and commentator, and Jayadvaita Maharaj and myself edited both these books. Well, he did the polish edit, so it's his edit, more or less. So in this book, Sanatana Goswami, which is 416 verses long, no, it's a little more, it's a few verses more than 416. But his idea was, Sanatana Goswami's idea was to offer 108 obeisances to the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. And so every few verses, there's a verse that states that this is the first obeisance, this is the second obeisance, and so on. And when he got through all the pastimes, and when he got to the 107th obeisance, which is the last to the Keshanada mathematician, it's the one before the last obeisance, and that's it's a stotram, which is called Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. It's 5 prayers glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you may ask, well, but we're reading the Bhagavad-gita. Why are we chanting this Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram? Because the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Gita are non-different. Yeah, they're both literary incarnations of Krishna. Therefore, this stotra applies to the Gita as well. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Driprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kali Dvanduditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. You are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangyen Madguro Mad Mahadana Mannishtadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin adini chochata kada anamuncha gadachin mam premna rit kadayokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we reach the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita As It Is. And the 7th chapter is the first of the middle 6 chapters of the Gita, which are most confidential, and therefore, according to the 6 Goswamis and Srila Prabhupada, they are protected by the first 6 and the last 6 chapters. But the essence of Krishna being the Supreme Lord and the details of what that means are described in these 6 chapters, and this is the first one, chapter 7, and we're starting with verse 24. Avyaktam vyaktimapanam manye mam abhudayaha manyate mam abhudayaha padang bhavamajananto mamavyayam anutamam. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. Purport. Those who are worshippers of demigods have been described as less intelligent persons. And here, the impersonalists are similarly described. Lord Krishna, in his personal form, is here speaking before Arjuna. And still, due to ignorance, impersonalists argue that the Supreme Lord ultimately has no form. Yamunacharya, a great devotee. I want to make sure you had a book. We have a book just in case you don't have a book. Okay, everybody's got their device. Yamunacharya, a great devotee of the Lord in the disciplic succession of Ramanujacharya, has written a very appropriate verse in this connection. He says, Tvam Shila Rupa Charitai Padama Prakrishtai Satvena Satvikataya Prabhalaish Chasastrahai Prakyata Daiva Padamartha Vidang Mitaischa Naivasuda Prakritaya Prabhavanti Bodhum. My dear Lord, devotees like Vyasadeva and Narada know you to be the personality of Godhead. By understanding different Vedic literatures, one can come to know your characteristics, your form, and your activities, and one can thus understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, the demons, the non-devotees, cannot understand you. They are unable to understand you. However expert such non-devotees may be in discussing Vedanta and the Upanishads and other Vedic literatures, it is not possible for them to understand the personality of Godhead. That's from the Stotra Ratna 12. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the personality of Godhead cannot be understood simply by study of the Vedanta literature. Only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord can the personality of the Supreme be known. Therefore, in this verse it is clearly stated that not only are the worshippers of the demigods less intelligent, but those non-devotees who are engaged in Vedanta and speculation on Vedic literature without any tinge of true consciousness, of true Krishna consciousness, are also less intelligent. And for them, it is not possible to understand God's personal nature. Persons who are under the impression that the Absolute Truth is impersonal are described as abhudayaha, which means those who do not know the ultimate feature of the Absolute Truth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that supreme realization begins from the impersonal Brahman and then rises to the localized Supersoul. But the ultimate word in the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead. Modern impersonalists are still less intelligent, for they do not even follow their great predecessor, Shankaracharya, who has specifically stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonalists, therefore, not knowing the Supreme Truth, think Krishna to be only the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, or a prince, or a powerful living entity. This is also condemned in the Bhagavad-gita 9:11. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanamashritam. Only the fools regard me as an ordinary person. The fact is that no one can understand Krishna without rendering devotional service and without developing Krishna consciousness. The Bhagavatam 10:14-29 confirms this. Atapi te devapadam bhujadvaya prasad lesha nugahita eva hi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko pichiram bichinban. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. One cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, or his form, quality, or name, simply by mental speculation or by discussing Vedic literature. One must understand him by devotional service. When one is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, beginning by chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then only can one understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Non-devotee impersonalists think that Krishna has a body made of this material nature, and that all his activities, his form, and everything are Maya, These impersonalists are known as Mayavadis. They do not know the ultimate truth. The 20th verse clearly states, Kamaistaistaya rityajnana prapadyantein yadevataha. Those who are blinded by lusty desires surrender unto the different demigods. It is accepted that besides the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are demigods who have their different planets, and the Lord also has a planet. As stated in the 23rd verse, Devan Deva Yayo Yanti Mad Bhakta Yanti Mamapi. The worshippers of the demigods go to the different planets of the demigods, and those who are devotees of Lord Krishna go to the Krishna Loka planet. Although this is clearly stated, the foolish impersonalists still maintain that the Lord is formless, and that these forms are impositions. From the study of the Gita, does it appear that the demigods and their abodes are impersonal? Clearly, neither the demigods nor Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are impersonal. They are all persons. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has his own planet, and the demigods have theirs. Therefore, the monistic contention that ultimate truth is formless and that form is imposed does not hold true. It is clearly stated here that it is not imposed. From the Bhagavad-gita, we can clearly understand that the forms of the demigods and the form of the Supreme Lord are simultaneously existing, and that Lord Krishna is Satchidananda, eternal, blissful knowledge. The Vedic literature confirms that the Supreme Absolute Truth is knowledge and blissful pleasure, Vijnanam, Anandam, Brahma. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3:9-28. And that is the reservoir of unlimited auspicious qualities. Ananta Kalyana Gunatmako Sao. Vishnu Purana 6:5-84. And in the Gita, the Lord says that although he is Aja, unborn, he still appears. These are the facts that we should understand from the Bhagavad-gita. We cannot understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be impersonal. The imposition theory of the impersonalist monist is false as far as the statements of the Gita are concerned. It is clear herein that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Lord Krishna, has both form and personality. Text 25. Nahang prakashat sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudho yam nabijanati lokomam ajamavyayam. I am never manifest. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and inexhaustible. Purport. It may be argued that since Krishna was visible to everyone, then why was he present on this earth? And how can it be said that he is not manifest to everyone? But actually he was not manifest to everyone. When Krishna was present, there were only a few people who could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the assembly of Kurus, when Shishupal spoke against Krishna's being elected president of the assembly, Bhishma supported Krishna and proclaimed him to be the supreme God. Similarly, the Pandavas and a few others knew that he was the supreme, but not everyone. He was not revealed to the non-devotees and the common man. Therefore, in the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says that but for his pure devotees, all men consider him to be like themselves. He was manifest only to his devotees as the reservoir of all pleasure. But to others, to unintelligent non-devotees, he was covered by his internal potency. In the prayer of Kunti, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.19, it is said that the Lord is covered by the curtain of Yogamaya, and thus ordinary people cannot understand him. This Yogamaya curtain is also confirmed in the Ishopanishad, mantra 15, in which the devotee prays, Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham tattvam pusham apavrinu satyadharmaya drishtaye. O my Lord, you are the maintainer of the entire universe, and devotional service to you is the highest religious principle. Therefore, I pray that you will also maintain me. Your transcendental form is covered by the Yogamaya. The Brahmajyoti is the covering of the internal potency. May you kindly remove this glowing effulgence that impedes my seeing your Satchidananda Vigraha, your eternal form of bliss and knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his transcendental form of bliss and knowledge, is covered by the internal potency of the Brahmajyoti, and the less intelligent impersonalists cannot see the Supreme on this account. Also, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.7, there is this prayer by Brahma. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Super Soul, O Master of all mystery, who can calculate your potency and pastimes in this world? You are always expanding your internal potency, and therefore no one can understand you. Learned scientists and learned scholars can examine the atomic constitution of the material world, or even the planets, but still they are unable to calculate your energy and potency, although you are present before them. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is not only unborn, but also avyaya, inexhaustible. His eternal form is bliss and knowledge, and his energies are all inexhaustible. Text 26. Vidaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishyami chabhutani mam tu veda nakaschana. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. Purport. Here the question of personality and impersonality is clearly stated. If Krishna, the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were Maya, material, as the impersonalists consider him to be, then, like the living entity, he would change his body and forget everything about his past life. Anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict what will happen in his present life. Therefore, he cannot know the events of past, present, and future. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, he cannot know past, present, and future. Unlike the ordinary human being, Lord Krishna clearly says that he completely knows what happened in the past, what is happening in the present, and what will happen in the future. In the 4th chapter, we have seen that Lord Krishna remembers instructing Vivaswan, the sun god, millions of years ago. Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living being's heart as the Supersoul. But despite his presence in every living entity as Supersoul, and his presence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person. Certainly the transcendental body of Sri Krishna is not perishable. He is just like the sun, and Maya is like a cloud. In the material world, we can see that there is the sun and that there are clouds and different stars and planets. The clouds may cover all these in the sky temporarily, but this covering is only apparent to our limited vision. The sun, moon, and stars are not actually covered. Similarly, Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord. By his internal potency, he is not manifest to the less intelligent class of men. As is stated in the 3rd verse of this chapter, out of millions and millions of men, some try to become perfect in this human form of life, and out of thousands and thousands of such perfected men, hardly one can understand what Lord Krishna is. Even if one is perfected by realization of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, he cannot possibly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, without being in Krishna consciousness. Text 27. Ichcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani samoham sargiyanti parantapa. O scion of Bharat, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Purport. The real constitutional position of the living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by the illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees, who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate, can understand that Lord Sri Krishna appears by his internal potencies. But those who are deluded by duality and nations think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energies. This is their misfortune. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, and so on, thinking, this is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 28. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajante mam dvidavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Purport. Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously, and who have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, gradually, they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness, in the association of pure devotees. For in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2 that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahat sevam dvaram ahur vimuktahe. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence. Tamo dvaram yoshitam sangi sangam. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's law. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality or to be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination. Text 29. Jada maranamokshaya mam ashritya yatanti ye te brahma tad vidu kritsnam ajatmam karmachakilam. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Purport. Birth, death, old age, and diseases affect this material body, but not the spiritual body. There is no birth, death, old age, and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains a spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages in eternal devotional service, is really liberated. Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit. It is said that one should understand that he is Brahman, spirit soul. This Brahman conception of life is also in devotional service, as described in this verse. The pure devotees are transcendentally situated on the Brahman platform, and they know everything about transcendental activities. 4 kinds of impure devotees who engage themselves in the transcendental service of the Lord achieve their respective goals, And by the grace of the Supreme Lord, they are fully Krishna when they are fully Krishna conscious, they actually enjoy spiritual association with the Supreme Lord. But those who are worshippers of demigods never reach the Supreme Lord in his supreme planet. Even the less intelligent, Brahman-realized persons cannot reach the supreme planet of Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan. Only persons who perform activities in Krishna consciousness, Mam Ashritya, are actually entitled to be called Brahman, because they are actually endeavoring to reach the Krishna planet. Such persons have no misgivings about Krishna, and thus they are factually Brahman. Those who are engaged in worshipping the form or archa of the Lord, or who are engaged in meditation on the Lord simply for liberation from material bondage, also know, by the grace of the Lord, the purports of Brahman, Adibhuta, and so on, as explained by the Lord in the next chapter. Text 30. Sadibhutari daivam mam sadijagyam chaye viduhu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasaha. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation, of the demigods, and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Purport. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and at the time of death, such a Krishna conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan. This 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord. And by his grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness, and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness, and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dridha Vrata, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita is the substance of that conviction. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-gita in the matter of knowledge of the Absolute. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Krishna and his transcendental explanation of how to attain the Supreme. Hare Krishna. Say we've come to exactly 7:45, which is our ending point. To the minute, to the second. Okay. So now, if anybody has any reflections or any point that came out, there's a lot of points in this chapter. Every word is a point to be remembered and reflected upon. But if anything stood out and you want to reflect on them or you want to discuss them more fully, please be our guest. So we have some people in the world, not very many, but some of the most important ones are out there in cyberspace. But we have a room full of inquisitive, like-minded devotees here too, so don't be shy. You know the program. You know the program. Hare Krishna. We'll stop here and take any reflections. Hare Krishna. Yes, Gopal Roy. I had a feeling you'd be the first off the block.
I'm shameless. I guess my first reflection was from the verse that we started on, where Krishna, it just seems very clear in this chapter that Krishna is explaining that, you know, his personality is the supreme. And I get it a lot speaking, especially those from maybe Indian origin, that misunderstand this point, even though it's very clearly said in the Bhagavad-gita. And I was appreciating how you see even very new devotees, even Bhaktas who've just read Prabhupada's books only once and just met the devotees, have, I guess it's Prabhupada's also expert way of explaining. He must be such a powerful spiritual master that even very new devotees can defeat, like we've had Bhaktas meet, you know, Vedic scholars on the streets and, you know, Hindu priests, and they can defeat them in argument to just using these.
And at least make a huge impression, even if they don't defeat them. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, you'll notice that Srila Prabhupada's translations are not literal translations. He translates everything in such a way as you can't make a mistake. And that's why it's very important to keep Srila Prabhupada's books in the center. Because these, nobody can write like this. And by the way, the devotees who edited this book have made it even more clear. We have direct letters and quotes from Srila Prabhupada where he expresses this. When I came to the West with the Bhagavatams, I didn't have the facility to make the English perfect. He said, the books are potent, whether they're perfect English or not. But it is our duty as devotees to make them as perfect as possible. And he said, if you don't have the facility to do that, that's fine. It's not a problem. They're still potent. But if you have the facility to put it in order, the proper English, then you must do it. And that is our philosophy. Everything perfect for Krishna. So based on that philosophy of life, Prabhupada has given the highest thoughts to the lowest people. He was sent by Prabhupada to the Western world. I mean, Prabhupada was sent by his spiritual master and by Bhaktivedanta, and therefore from Krishna directly to this Western world. And I am of the conviction that the train of thought, that's why I'm tempted so many times when I'm reading, I'm tempted to make a comment. I am, because there's so many things that I've heard and experienced that I can add a little bit or add a little bit. But if you start doing that, then you lose the actual potency, not just the drift, but the power of Prabhupada's train of thought. And if you just keep hearing whatever you think the comments should be, or whatever you think how you can understand it more clearly, Prabhupada will just lay it out there on a golden plate right in front of you. Yeah. And therefore, I used to sometimes travel in India. I traveled in India a lot at one point. And I was on a train from Bangalore or someplace to Bombay, and I met one of these guys, these Indian scholars. And we started talking, and of course, they know everything. But they're reading not empowered translations. They're not reading from people who translate it as it is. They have so many speculative, relative speculations going on in their brain. Therefore, they can't hear the thing. But he was really fascinated that I knew some Sanskrit verses. And I had the answer to his questions directly from the same. And he followed me out of the train and followed me right to the Jew temple. So I didn't, I was just, what do I know? Who am I? He's a big elevated something or other. But he was so impressed. And it's interesting because when Prabhupada came to the West, he couldn't get hardly anyone to respond to him in India. And it's for this reason. They think they know it all. And when he came here, and the Westerners heard, because he was tailor-made, no other Indian-bodied person could do what he did, without a shadow of a doubt. And therefore, he started this movement with a bunch of monkeys, not monkeys, but unqualified Westerners, and galvanized them into a movement, and went back to India and just blew their minds. They'd never seen anything like it. And then, when he left, because he empowered us, there's no doubt about it, and those who take his instructions very seriously, they make order out of the disorder that naturally comes when a personality of his stature leaves the planet. It happens every time. We're no different than anyone else. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, and because they didn't follow the last instruction he gave them, don't try to be an Acharya, manage the movement collegially, make a board, a governing board. That was his last instruction. And they didn't do it. And therefore, whatever happened after then fell apart. So our movement is still intact. After how many years since Prabhupada left? 44 years? 43, 44 years? It's still intact. Because the structure that he set up is still intact. We're not as perfect as him, of course. And we make mistakes, and we made big mistakes. And different devotees have fallen away even persons of elevated positions have fallen away. But clearly in the scriptures it explains all these things. And those who are actually serious, they continue to follow and continue to bring light and bring together the disorder and make order out of it. That's my reflection on your reflection.
Yeah. And I don't know, hog the mic, but I have a reflection on your...
Go ahead.
That?
That's the nature of it.
I was... when you were making the point as well about, the Prabhupada's clarity of purpose becoming even more clear.
Yes.
To the, and that's another thing. As we were reading this, how Krishna and Prabhupada is saying that Krishna can only be understood. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness, in the association of pure devotees. For in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. And how to understand Krishna, Prabhupada is saying you need Krishna consciousness, and Krishna consciousness is given through the devotees.
We may think that we can't do this. We may think like that. How we can be guru. Lord Chaitanya told us you all become guru. But he said it's not so difficult as you think. You just have to learn this book and repeat it. That's it. If you do that, you become guru. What do the people in general now in the world know about spiritual life? Or anything for that matter? So we have to always see things in the proper perspective. And it's another reason why reading Srila Prabhupada's books like we do, straightforward, straight through, cover to cover, and have reflections, but not until we hear the thought for 45 minutes or an hour. It changes everything. I was thinking about making a proposal to the GBC this year, or maybe next year. You know, that if you make a law that in every ISKCON temple, the speaker for the Bhagavatam class has to read Prabhupada's books for at least 15 or 20 minutes before he starts talking. What would that do? I think it would do a lot, frankly.
Yeah.
We'll see. But anyway, we're doing our part by doing this every day and by doing these audiobooks so people can hear, you know, because everybody's got buds in their ears now, and it's harder for them to sit down with the book, and their eyes are so restless, and they're so tired of being, you know, pummeled by the material energy. They can't even keep their eyes open when they open up a book. It's automatic sleep. You know, it's like a sleeping pill. You know, you get a book. What have you got? I got your sleeping pill. You know, here, go ahead, try it out. Oh yeah, it works. So with the sound, everybody's really, addicted to the sound, listening. They got their devices, they got their earbuds, they got their systems, sound systems, whatever. So if we just put this transcendental sound, you know, through our mouths, it works. Anyone. So we don't have to have this mystical thing that only, you know, a pure devotee can do this or do that. We are the devotees that are being transparent by accepting this, the mantle of this responsibility. As soon as you do that fully, as soon as you commit yourself fully, then the empowerment immediately comes. To the extent that you have committed yourself fully, to the extent that you've surrendered to Krishna, he empowers you. And this is how we're being empowered, through these books. These books are what, not just, it spread the movement all over the world, these books. And not only that, financially, you know, the money that came to do that came from the selling of the books. Just like now you're making a nice project in Wales, in Cardiff especially, and you're getting the money to do it through distributing these books to a big extent. You don't have such a large Indian population. And those Indian body devotees who saved our movement and saved our projects when Prabhupada left, and only a few, it turned out that only a few could keep it together and not get crushed by the levels of responsibility they were forced to take. You know? Then they came out, because Prabhupada went to India with us and brought them out. So we should be confident. What did Prabhupada say? Unflinching faith in something sublime. That is firm faith. That is empowered faith. And we get it from hearing these books without argument, with love and faith.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj. I was about to.
Gopal, you're a natural.
Well, I was about to glorify you and how how we can. I always find it so much easier to understand the philosophy in your presence, but you transcendentally, psychically already cut me off, and just put the ball back in our court. That empowered us that we can.
I was raised by Jayananda. He trained me up.
So you cut me off before I could get there. But really, thank you very much.
That's my defense mechanism. Any more reflections? Dr. Haridas, I know that you're the best reflector in the room.
I was just thinking, you've kind of pretty much answered most of what addressed most of what I'm going to ask anyway. But it was just on the point tonight we were reading about how the vast majority of people don't know Krishna as he is, kind of thing, and it's only a very few people who can. It's only by his mercy that they can understand him as he is.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, as devotees who've been given this opportunity that we have now, again, you've pretty much answered it in your question and Gopal's reflection, but how do we best avail ourselves to that mercy so that we can understand Krishna as he is?
We have to, we've been in the material world for a long time, and our hearts are filled with dust and dirt and all kinds of inauspicious things, and it has to be cleansed. And the holy name is called the Yuga Dharma because it is the medium, he is the medium through which our hearts will be cleansed. Now you may think, well, I've heard that the super soul is in the heart and he's the supreme cleaner, so what more do I need to do? Well, he's the guest. Just like now you are our guests in this flat, and it's our duty to take care of you, to make you feel comfortable as possible. And but we're not such good hosts in the sense that even though he's there, never leaves, and he's been with us since we came to this material world, never leaves us, no matter what kind of body we get, no matter what kind of a mess we get ourselves into, he's always there, facilitating, encouraging. Even what we want that's not good for us, he still facilitates and encourages. But when he hears us get just a little bit attached, therefore there's that verse, one of the verses that we heard, with just a fragrance of an attachment to hearing about him, he takes up the broom himself as a guest and cleans. So how do we get in that position to be fortunate enough to do that? Just take these books seriously. Be sincere. That's it. In the first part of the Bhagavatam, Krishna says, Dharma projito kaitavo nirmatsaranam satam. Dharma projito kaitavo tra nirmatsaranam sutam. This book and the Bhagavad-gita kicks out cheating religion, because there's no mental speculative exposition of the author trying to use the reputation of Krishna for his own purposes, to put his own thing out there. Therefore, it comes through the mouth of Shukadev Goswami and then Sutta Goswami. Word for every word, not one word changed. And I caught this somehow or other, sometime way down the line. Maybe it was when I first touched the books, but anyway, it was somewhere down the line. And I caught this, that if we just hear these books without falling into the trap of mundane arguments, then we can get it directly and immediately. It can take 1 second, or it can take millions of births. It's up to us. But Krishna is so kind, He sent Srila Prabhupada, and it's right there. If you just read these books cover to cover, that's it. That's how. Read these books cover to cover out loud, to yourself, to others, get other people to read out loud. The sound will do it. And what's up to us is to stop arguing and hear with rapt attention. You can't hear with rapt attention unless you've got a pure mind. You can't have a pure mind unless you are pure in your activities, because there's a link between the mind and the activities of the senses. If your mind is pure, automatically your senses start doing the right thing. If you're agitated and you start to do all this nonsense, it reflects onto the mind, makes your mind agitated. That's the relationship between the senses and the mind. Therefore, it says in the Gita that the center of the senses is the mind. Stop speculating. Keep hearing the truth until it sinks in, until Krishna gets, the more attached you get to hear, faster Krishna brooms inside and cleans our heart. When your heart's clean, then you won't even be touched by Maya. Even if you're out there distributing books, you watch Vaishya and Prabhu in action. This guy's like in another world, he doesn't, nothing phases him at all. He just keeps on going. And he's been doing it for 48 years. Solid, without stopping. Just practice makes perfect. Everybody starts from the beginning, and of course we all may start from a different position because of what we've done in the past life, but everyone can start and everyone can finish in this life by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. He promised us this. And he's so dear to Krishna. He is a person that is so dear to Krishna that if we just take your initiation seriously, follow the regulated principles strictly, chant your rounds trying to give up offenses, and it all comes from that. That's where we get our strength from. That's where we get our knowledge, and that's how we can perceive what's right and wrong. And select tattvavit, tu mahabaho, guna, karma, vibhagayo, guneshu vartanta, itimatva nisajjate. Tattvavit, those who have heard from a transcendental source outside the system of action or reaction to this material world, they're given the discrimination to see what is the difference between devotional service and sense gratification, and can choose devotional service.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Keep distributing these books. And even if you can't, do something to help. Anything. And you'll become transported. Guaranteed. Why? Because when Narada Muni saw how degraded Nalakuvara and Manigriva were, they wouldn't even cover themselves naked in front of him. And all these girls are around. They're all covering themselves up because they weren't as degraded, all intoxicated. He looked at them and he said, you're such nonsenses. You're so attached to being naked. I think that you should spend a little time as trees. They got sobered up a little bit. No, fall in the ground in front of. No, please. What are our father going to say? Our father is, Kuvera, the treasure of the demigods. What is he going to say? You can't do this to us. Narada says, well, unfortunately, this is the gift I have. Whatever I say comes true. So I can't take it back. Oh no. Now what? He said, but I can amend it because you've been so submissive all of a sudden. So I amend the curse that you will have the birth in trees in the court of Nanda Maharaj, and you will get Krishna's direct darshan, and he will deliver you. And if you remember the Bhagavatam, when Krishna came and was all tied up, there he is, there's Yashoda tying him up, this grinding mortar, And then he starts to pull it, and it gets stuck between the trees. And just before he pulled down the trees, he thought, Narada Muni said, I have to deliver these too, so I have to do it. And then he pulled down the trees. So the promise of a pure devotee on that level is so powerful that it controls Krishna. Pure love controls Krishna. So Prabhupada came the West, he saw who we are. We can't even imagine what he saw. He said, don't think that I'm just saying cats and dogs. I am seeing cats and dogs. So he was installing Radha and Krishna deities in places where they didn't have any idea what they were doing. He went to the deities and he said, dear Lord, please accept the service of my disciples. And that's why we can do what we do. That's it. So follow the regulated principles strictly. Chant your 16 rounds without fail every day, while trying to give up offenses, which is a big thing. It's not mechanical. If you find yourself, doing anything mechanical, your rounds, your Sankirtan, any service you're doing, sit down wherever you are, pick up one of these books, open it up, and you will become enlivened immediately, if you're honest. Therefore I say again, sincerity and honesty. Dharma kaitavo, dharma projita kaitavotra, nirmatsaranam siddham. Nirmatsaranam means give up envy. We just heard. Icha dvesha samutina dvandva mohina bharata. Desire and hate, or another way of saying hate is aversion or envy. It's the same. Envy, satam. Sometimes Prabhupada translated as honest. Sometimes he translated as pure. But whatever, sincerity, freedom from envy, honesty, these qualities that are described in the Gita, cultivate them. Try. And just a little effort, Krishna will come your way. Prabhupada will clear the way. That's all we got. 8:10. We got to stop. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. And for all of you out there in cyberspace, I'm sure you're not disappointed, because we had some very nice reflections, and the chapter we're reading is just doesn't get any better than this. So forgive us tonight for not having time to take the reflections of those of you who are the most loyal hearers and chanters of Prabhupada's books with us. Srimad Bhagavad-gita As It Is, Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same place, same time, same topic. The knowledge of how to go to Krishna and take others with us. See you tomorrow. Hari Bol.